All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the January 19th meeting of the East Bay Regional Park District Finance Committee. We're meeting today pursuant to the East Bay Regional Park District Resolution and the Brown Act as amended by Assembly Bill 361. The East Bay Regional Park District headquarters will not be open to the public, and the Board of Directors and staff will be participating in the board committee meetings via phone or video conferencing. So that's the format we're using today. Once again, welcome. I think, we've got a bunch of new members or a few new members of this committee, and so Connie, I don't know what the tradition is, but I think if you take roll, welcome the new members.
I certainly will. I'm having a little problem with my video, so I'm going to keep it off. But I will take roll call. Director and Chair Dennis Waspy.
Here.
Director Ann Wieskamp.
Here.
And Director Colin Coffey.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. And I can introduce the staff members if you'd like. Director Waspy. Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. I'm Deborah Ocker. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Park District, and we have with us several members of the finance staff. Deborah Spalding, our Assistant Finance Officer, Michelle Strassen-O'Hara, our Assistant Finance Officer. We also have, you met Connie. We have Kim Belingett, our Accounting Manager, Matthew James, Administrative Assistant. We have Tao Vong Sao Pan, who is our administrative assistant in our administrative analyst in budget. And then we also have a few speakers, which we're going to introduce when we get to their items. But also Juliana Schirmer is joining us today for the last item on the agenda.
Well, great. It's all good to see you all. And I think for housekeeping purposes, Connie, could you let the public know how they have a number of ways to participate and in the meeting and speak at public comment section? Could you let folks know how that could be done?
Definitely. There's 3 ways. You can do it via the Zoom, which we're on right now, and you can ask to make a public comment in the chat department. You can also do it via email to me at cswisher@ebparks.org. And the third one would be a voicemail. You can call me at 510-544-2100 and leave a voicemail. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So our first item today is an informational item. It's the annual financial audit planning memo for the year ended December 31st, 2021, and an engagement letter with the independent auditors. Michelle.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Michelle Strassen, Assistant Finance Officer. Can everyone see the screen okay? Excellent. Okay. Today I'm here to present the 2021 Audit Plan and Engagement Letter and welcome Audit Partner Rosalva Flores from Brown Armstrong CPAs, who will be presenting an overview of their specific responsibilities and approach. As a reminder, the board appointed Brown Armstrong in September 2019 as the Park District's independent audit firm for 3 years, starting with a 2019 audit, with an option to extend for 2 additional years through 2023. As we have some new members on the committee, I wanted to start by briefly outlining the various roles and responsibilities. As stated in the board operating guidelines, the Finance Committee has a direct reporting relationship with the audit firm and oversees any future auditor selection. The committee is responsible for reviewing the scope of the audit engagement, receiving required communications from the auditor, and for providing recommendations to the board of directors. The district's management is responsible for establishing and maintaining effective internal controls and for complying with policies, regulations, and agreements. Management's also responsible for the preparation of the annual comprehensive financial report, otherwise known as the ACFR, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, for the preparation of schedules for the expenditures of federal awards, which are used to identify all federal grants received and assist with grant compliance as part of the single audit requirements. The audit firm is responsible for performing their audit in accordance with government auditing standards and expressing an opinion on whether the Park District's financial statements are presented in accordance with GAAP. The scope of the audit work includes auditing the ACFR, compliance with Office of Management and Budget's Uniform Grant Guidance, or the single audit, the GAN appropriations limit, and providing technical assistance with GASB 68 and 75 for note disclosures for pension and other retiree benefits and reporting. Regarding the audit schedule for this year, planning began in December with developing the detailed audit plan and critical dates list and refamiliarizing with the operating environment of the Park District. Interim audit work kicks off next Monday, January 24th for 1 week, and Brown Armstrong will be conducting their final remote field work testing the last week of April. Finance staff will then finalize the annual comprehensive financial report, which management will present to the Finance Committee and the Park Advisory Committee at their June meetings, and then to the board in July for acceptance. So that concludes my presentation. Before I pass you over to Rosalva, are there any questions for me?
Any questions, comments from board members?
No, it looks normal.
Hearing none, yeah, it looks like we've seen before, but thank you very much.
Okay, so now I'll introduce you again to Rosalva Flores, Brown Armstrong CPAs, for her presentation.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Michelle, for that introduction. I do have materials that I'm going to be displaying here in a second. Can everyone see those materials?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. So this is for our annual audit of the December 31 year end. This is the third year that we are going to be performing an audit. And we're very thankful, first of all, for the opportunity. The plan that we would like to discuss with you today is a plan that we lay out during our audit planning. But we always like to have the communication with you to let you know what our planned approach is and to allow you to ask any questions and, if you have any comments, to also incorporate any suggestions, recommendations, or areas that you would like us to include as part of our audit. So that's kind of the intent of today's meeting. But also, most importantly, we are required by professional standards to have this communication with you. So this information also complies with that requirement. So again, just a very quick overview of our planned approach in our audit. In the materials that I have displayed, I also am going to be going over the engagement team, talk a little bit more about audit objectives. Michelle did a wonderful job in going over some of the responsibilities, but I'll be going over some additional ones for your information. And then also talk about a little bit more in detail the audit approach, and then the reports that we are going to be issuing, and then as well as talk about some of the GASB accounting pronouncements. There are some that are going to be applicable for this audit, and then also some information on some future pronouncements that are out there, just to let you know that they are on our radar. And then I'll conclude with any questions.
Rosalva, I think your screen share isn't quite working. If you would take it down and try it one more time.
Oh, okay.
It's very interesting green line, but
Okay.
well, we concentrate on what she's saying. Oh, not bad.
Yeah, maybe just go ahead and stop sharing and see if you can reshare and see if that fixes it.
Sure.
It's hard when you're presenting. You can't. Oh, there. Now it's good.
Oh,
Thank
okay, perfect.
you. Okay.
Great, good. Well, thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then on the next slide, I spoke about the engagement team. I will be continuing as the engagement partner responsible for all the communication with your management, performing all the final reviews, and then issuing the final audit opinions. And then this year, we do have a change in the engagement manager. Paul Sahota is joining me today. He is going to be the engagement manager on the engagement. And Paul has actually extensive experience auditing other government entities, such as large counties and cities. And Paul is going to be very instrumental in the audit. He's going to be assisting with all the final reviews as well, performing detailed review on the audit, having that communication on a day-to-day basis with management, as well as directing all of the staff during the audit. And Paul, did you want to add anything?
I would just like to say that I'm happy to be on this engagement. It's nice meeting all of you today. I look forward to working with especially the management side of the team, which I'll probably be dealing with on day-to-day basis, such as Michelle and Kimberly, I think mostly. So nice to meet all of you. And if you guys have any questions for me at this time, I would love to answer those, or just wanted to say hi.
Thank you, Paul. So also wanted to mention, you'll see on the side, we have designated an engagement technical reviewer. This is a very important process for us because as part of the audit, we have a pretty rigorous internal quality control at our firm, which means that even after all the reports and the work is completed and it's gone through several reviews internally, we also designate another CPA that was not involved in the audit to kind of have a final look at all of our reports, review the financial statements as well to make sure we didn't miss anything. And this is just part of our audit quality that we have just because we take audit quality very seriously. So that's what that individual role will be on the audit. Any questions on the engagement team? All right.
Any questions from board members? Resolve, I had one. I'm new or rotating back onto the finance committee after quite some time, but you've done this audit 2 years before, right?
Correct.
So how about, have you or Paul or Ashley been involved with the East Bay Regional Park District in the last 2 years, or is this new to?
Yes, Ashley was co-partner with me on the audit last year. When we came in on year one, she was the engagement manager because she hadn't been promoted. So we promoted her internally to partner. And so she's very instrumental as well because she also has that knowledge on the district's activities. And so we felt that she would be great to be the technical reviewer. And Paul has not been involved. This is his first year. And as I said, he has significant experience with large government entities auditing cities and counties.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And then on the next slide that I have here, we talked about some of our audit objectives. Obviously our main responsibility is to provide you with our audit opinions at the conclusion of our audit. And so we will be providing our opinions, also to provide assurance to those readers of the financial statements. The financial statements are obviously going to be published and released. And so we want to make sure that we're able to provide that comfort in that management's assertion that the financial statements are accurate is actually correct. So that's what our opinion will serve for the Park District. And then also, obviously, our responsibility, as was stated by Michelle, is to provide you with communication so that you have that information and so that you can fulfill your role as the finance committee. And then also, we always, as a value added, we are always going to be reaching out to management if there's any observations for additional opportunities for improvement, or if we can assist your management with any implementation of new standards, or based on our experience other government entities that we can also assist your management. We'll also be available throughout the audit to answer any questions. So that's kind of our audit objectives. And then on the next slide that I have here, Michelle also spoke a little bit about audit responsibilities. I just wanted to provide you this also as for your information. Obviously, we are also going to be conducting a government auditing standards procedures and issuing a report on your internal controls, and also in accordance with the uniform guidance, because you also receive federal funds. And so we'll be providing an opinion on the federal expenditures as well. And so as we're conducting our audit, we are developing a list of questions and items that are needed to provide to your management so that they can have ample time to gather the information and prepare for our audit when we come in. So that has already been completed. And then obviously also, again, having that clear communication as we're conducting each phase of the audit, having that communication not only with management, but also with you on any important matters as they arise during the audit, and having that presentation to you before we issue the reports. And then on the next slide, I just have a little bit more information. Sometimes we get asked about how we conduct our audit, and we just put this together just to give you a little bit more of a breakout as to how we conduct our audit. In the first phase, we're doing our audit planning. You know, obviously we have good familiarity of your operating environment, but every year, you know, there might be additional risks that we identify as we're doing our audit planning, also based on our understanding of other districts such as yours. And so we are developing our audit plan, coming up with what significant areas and what additional procedures we're going to incorporate into our audit plan. And so again, once that's completed, then we send out our information request list to your management. And then on our phase two, this is when we're conducting the interim portion of the audit, doing our internal control assessment, performing our walkthroughs. Naturally, we've already have a good understanding of each of the key accounting areas. But as always, you know, we go through this process every year, because you might have, you know, different policies and procedures that you put in place, or you might have new personnel that might have had some changes in your control. So we'll go through that process every year as well. And then we'll also interview your staff, conduct some of our fraud interviews so that we have, if there's any concerns, we make sure we address those as part of the audit. And then obviously we're going through, once we complete interim, we're going through that communication with management, making sure we keep them aware of any recommendations that we have or any findings or other issues. And then once we complete interim, we do have to reassess our audit plan based on the results. And so when we come back out for the phase three, which is the final fieldwork, this is when all your accounts have already been closed. And so we are performing a substantive audit on all the account balances. We're also doing the single audit, the audit on your federal expenditures and making sure that they are in compliance with those laws. And then we're also doing our final management meetings so that we keep them aware again of any important matters as they come up during the audit. And then in the final phase, which is our wrap-up procedures, we're not only drafting all of our reports, we're also assisting your management with the review of the financial statements for the submission to the GFOA. And then finally, we are reporting the results to you and also to the board. Any questions on our audit approach?
Questions, comments? Hearing
Straightforward.
none? No, I guess not. Oh.
All right. And then on the next slide, obviously, are all the reports that we are going to be issuing. So I just kind of wanted to provide you also this information. Obviously, the main opinion on the financial statements, which again will assert that the financial statements are materially accurate and in accordance with all applicable standards. And then also, as I mentioned, we will be issuing a yellow book report on internal controls, and reporting to you any significant matters, if there were any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we would be required to report to you. And then, as I also stated, you know, we do have the single audit to perform on your federal grants. So that report will also provide you with information on whether the district complied with all of those federal requirements. And then the next report, required communication to you. That's just a letter that is required by the standards so that we communicate to you any relevant matters as they pertain to the audit, including if we found any audit adjustments, if there were any significant standards implemented, or even if there were any disagreements as we were conducting our audit. And then the final report that you'll expect to issue, us to issue is what we call a management letter. And that'll be if as we're conducting our audit, if we have any areas of improvement or any best practices that we can recommend to your management, that'll be included in this management letter. Any questions on this slide? Okay. And then on the next slide, as I mentioned, I just wanted to provide you with information on new accounting standards. There's a few in this slide here that are applicable to the current year. And the first two, 89 and 90, they are not going to have an effect on the district because they don't apply. The last one that we kind of already talked about is GASB number 98, the annual comprehensive financial report. So you may have noticed that the previous acronym CAFR is no longer going to be used. It's going to be referred now as the ACFR. And this new acronym was changed by the issuance of this standard because of the sensitivity of the old acronym. So nothing significant. I mean, obviously just a change in the acronym. I think the most important thing is remembering to say ACFR, and I know I catch myself many times still trying to refer to it as the CAFR. So I think that's the challenging, trying to remember the new acronym. And then on the next slide, we just have some, again, summarizing some standards that also have been issued. They don't apply to this audit, they apply to the future audits, but again, just keeping it here so that we discuss with management and keeping it on our radar. The one I did want to summarize really quick is the very first one, GASB number 87 on leases. And this is going to be applicable in the next audit. And actually, this would have actually been applicable to this year's audit, except the GASB did delay and allowed for an additional year to implement. And so now you're looking at a 12/31/2022 implementation. And so this is something that is going to require management to be looking at your operating leases and assessing and reviewing to see if if they fall under this standard to be reported and disclosed. So that's the big change on this one. And then there's a few others that are on this page also, but we looked at it and we don't think they'll have a significant effect. So I'm not gonna go over each one of those. On the next ones, just a few more. Again, the GASB's been pretty busy, but as far as what we determine, we don't believe they'll have a significant effect on the district upon implementation. And so that's kind of it. I mean, we just kind of wanted to give you information on our audit, and again, just establish that two-way communication, make you aware that we're available to answer any questions. Feel free definitely to send us any concerns that you have. Obviously, as we start interim, we are going to be interviewing various personnel from management to staff. And also we will be interviewing a member from the finance committee. And so we welcome your comments, but usually we'll only select one finance committee member, but definitely if you want to share any additional comments or areas that you would like us to incorporate in the audit, please definitely let us know. So that's kind of all I have. Did you have any questions for me?
Well, thank you, Rosalba, very much. Any comments from board members?
Seems straightforward.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I had one, but I was thinking of, you mentioned the objectives, responsibilities, the approach, and the reports that are going to happen during this audit. And my question was going to be, is anything substantially different from what you've done in the last 2 years? And then I saw your whole list of GASB, which seems to change every year and keep adding numbers. But I guess my question would be, just without thinking of GASB, which I know always changes and revises itself, is there anything substantially different that's going to occur this year as opposed to the last 2 years that you've worked with us?
So that's a really great question. And one thing that I wanted to add that we normally do as a standard procedure is that we actually have what we call an engagement team discussion. And so we'll actually, once we have a better understanding of what changed during the year in terms of policies and procedures, we actually have that meeting to come up with ways of what additional fraud risk and considerations would we want to incorporate in the audit. And so that meeting will happen right after we complete interim. So as far as the standard plan, there are always changes in our plan, just because, for instance, in terms of the tested controls, we usually test the key accounting areas, including payroll, disbursements, receipts. But if we do find that sometimes the policies and procedures have not changed and there are no significant changes in systems that would affect those areas, then we can actually rotate a control. So to answer your question, we have rotated some controls that we tested last year that we can actually rotate this year and not test if we find that there are no significant changes in your control. So that would be a significant change. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalva. It's always great to see you, and welcome, Paul. Typically during the audit, when you're here on site, I would just pop in and say hello and welcome you, but you're going to do a virtual audit again, like you did last year. Last year, I think we were their first client to do a 100% virtual audit, and they're pros at it now. So we'll see the next. So also we have an exit meeting with the general manager always as part of the process. So definitely our new general manager will be involved, and the auditors typically aren't back to see you until June. So maybe we'll be able to have an in-person meeting in June, and that's the time they'll go over any recommendations they have for us. So we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we would definitely look forward from an in-person, because yes, it feels like we feel the same way. It's nice to have remote, but we don't have that, one-on-one communication. And so it'd be nice to get back to in-person.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and welcome, and we look forward to a great relationship. Are there any comments from the public? I don't see any public here on the screen. Hearing none, thank you very much. And we'll move to item number 2, which is the staff is seeking a recommendation to the full board. It is the review of the draft documents, including the resolution authorizing the issuance of Measure WW Series 2022A bonds in the principal amount of $60 million and the refunding of $4 million of Measure WW Series 2009 bonds.
Great. Thank you, Director Waspy. We gave you a nice thick packet for your first meeting, didn't we? So today we're excited to bring to you the package for issuing new Measure WW bonds. We have our bond team with us here, where I'm going to introduce, and we did bring a kind of a more informational item to the November Finance Committee to give them a heads up that we were moving forward with this, make sure that they recommended we go forward. So here we are again. Next slide. So first, I'll just introduce our bond team to the Finance Committee. Of course, on the staff side, we have myself. Deborah Spalding is our kind of lead finance staff. On the legal side, we have Jason Rosenberg, and of course, Sabrina Landreth, our general manager. And today with us, we have our financial advisors from Fieldman Rollap. We have our principal, Anis Sarabian, and Chelsea Redman. And they worked with us last time we issued bonds in 2017. And also our bond counsel is Jones Hall. Katie Dobson and Juan Galvan have been working with us, and I think we excused them from this meeting, but they helped us put together all these documents. And they also, Jones Hall has been with the district for a long time as bond counsel. Slide. And so here, as we mentioned, this is part of our $500 million authority that we got from the voters back in 2008 for our Measure WW plan. We've issued bonds 3 times prior in 2009, 2013, and 2017, all in $80 million increments. Just with COVID and everything else and our success with grants, we're proposing $60 million for this issuance. And that's, just to make sure we're staying in compliance with the law that states that we have to spend at least 85% of our proceeds within a 3-year period. And like the 2017 bonds, we're going to issue half of it as green bonds. And so I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna. And if you want to add anything to this slide or take us through the next several slides, Anna, that would be great.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and I hope you can all hear me okay this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be presenting again in front of you today. Just to add a brief comment here on this slide, after the adoption of Measure WW, as Deborah said, the district has successfully issued bonds in 2009, 13, and 17. And the board should really pat itself on the back for positioning the district in such a great place to enjoy the highest possible credit rating, which is a AAA credit rating on the bonds, and position the district to issue yet another series for its acquisition and capital improvement program at very attractive interest rates. Moving on to the next slide, as part of the issuance, back in 2017, the district issued the last series of new money WW bonds. And at the time, the district also refunded the majority of the outstanding 2009 bonds. There was a little piece that was left outstanding at the time from the 2009 bonds. And that was because those bonds could not be called at that time. And now, as we are proceeding with the issuance of the 2022 bonds, it made sense both from an interest rate perspective and from efficiencies and economies of scale to add that small remaining piece and refinance it for savings as part of the new issuance. And per the district's debt policy, any refunding needs to achieve at least 3% net present value savings. That means at least 3% of savings after all costs of issuance are factored in. And based on preliminary analysis, the refunding is projected to achieve double-digit savings of about 13% or 540,000, which will be passed to the taxpayers. I do want to draw to your attention that these are preliminary estimates and the final numbers will be locked in at the time of pricing. Another detail before we move on to the next slide is going back to the point of the district's excellent financial performance and credit rating and well-known and received name in the marketplace. We are contemplating selling the bonds just like we've done in the past through a competitive sale. And competitive sale is one where the bonds are open for a bid from interested purchasers, investment banks, and the best bid wins. It's like an auction where you have a given date and at a given time, everyone needs to submit their bid, and the one that provides the lowest cost wins. So we are planning to do that in mid-February, and we'll talk about the schedule later. Moving on to the next slide, how the program has been structured. When Measure WW was passed by the voters, there was an understanding that the tax rate that will be targeted per $100,000 of assessed value will not exceed 10%, $10. Using certain conservative assumptions for how the district's assessed value will continue growing in the future, we have been well below the $10 per 100,000 of assessed value. And like we did in 2017, the plan this time around is to target $6 tax rate per 100,000 of assessed value in the first 2 years, 23 and 24. And that leaves the additional capacity for the district down the road to issue future bonds for its program starting in 25 and later. Also, due to the interest rate environment and the expected very strong interest in the district's bonds, we are planning to structure the new series with a 15-year term. And so they will amortize faster and be repaid by the district a lot faster. Moving on to the next slide, Deborah mentioned that we are planning to designate half of the new issuance, so half of the 60 million, or in other words, 30 million of the bonds as green bonds. And so what are green bonds? Green bonds are bonds, the proceeds of which are used for projects that reduce greenhouse gases, mitigate climate change, or provide other environmental benefits. And historically, green bonds have been gaining in popularity, especially in recent years. And a lot of issuers self-designate their bonds as green bonds, but the district's always taken a step further and sought an independent second-party attestation and certification that its bonds are really green bonds. And this time around, we are going to be obtaining that second-party opinion from S&P, which is a rating agency well established and renowned in the municipal marketplace. In addition, the district has developed its own green bond framework. And even though currently there is no pricing benefit for municipal bonds, which are green bond designated, there is in the future an expectation that as more and more issuers officially certify their green issuances, there will be some pricing benefit. But the benefit right now is that we're promoting the green aspect of the bonds, helping the environment, and there are more investors that are interested in investing in projects that provide environmental benefits. Moving on to the next slide, we have seen in recent years that various investment funds create special portfolios, the monies in which are solely invested in green bond projects. And so we're hoping to appeal to those investors when we offer the green bond $30 million from Measure WW. As with any additional designation, there is some additional work associated with it in terms of reporting and making sure that the proceeds really go for green designated projects. But the district's already been doing that since 2017 and has well-established practices and policies in place that it will continue with for the new issuance. And maybe here, before I hand it over to Deb Spalding to talk about the bond documents associated with the transaction in our timeline, let me pause and see if you have any questions.
Looks like we're good. Oh, I see Director Coffey.
Deborah, my memory was there was actually a measurable benefit from the green designation last time we did this. Very, very, very small, but
yeah, we can go look that up. There was a do you remember, Anna?
In 2017, we had 4 series of bonds. 2 were green and 2 were non-green. And so there was 1 series of the green ones, which got 1 basis point better in the bid than the non-green. But that was an outlier, and you have great memory, Director Hoffman. That was an outlier because in the marketplace, historically, there hasn't been any benefit to the green bond designation.
You see, I was hoping that that would follow what we achieved and that we could take credit for being in the forefront of bringing financial savings if you're able to designate green. Anyway, so we're still going to wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and thank you, Anna. I'd like to follow up on that. I'm looking through my notes here. I noticed that, you know, if so this will be 50% of our bond, or $30 million will be for green bonds. I'm wondering if when we do this have the second party certification, can we explore more? Because I think it's a good thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do. And I think you're right. In the future, there will be some benefit to it, financially, maybe. And I'm trying to think, I was trying to think the exclusions. Obviously, if you, build a trail, that's great. But I know, I'm trying to think of where the exclusions were, but say a parking lot. I know a parking lot, obviously asphalt doesn't sound like a green bond, but if you're providing a place for people to come to a park their cars safely, and enjoy nature and enjoy the benefits of nature and get to a hiking trail, or even, I mean, if you really want to stretch it, some people come park at our parking lots and ride on the Bay Trail to commute to one of their jobs or to commute to work. So I'm wondering if we can try to expand it. Do we have the opportunity to do that, or are there really fixed rules?
So that's a great question. It's an evolving process, but S&P has requested details on the projects that we are planning on funding with the bonds. And so as they complete their review, there are certain categories that are clearly designated green, such as, habitat and trails, as you said, just land acquisitions in general. And certainly if they determine that we have more projects than we thought, we could expand and have more than 50%. But at the preliminary analysis, it was determined comfortably that 50% will clearly be green.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, Director Waspy, we're being a little conservative, so I think we can push the limit a little bit. For instance, if we were to use WW funds to build a state-of-the-art visitor center that was gold, LEED gold or something like that, then even though it's development, we may request, does that, fit the criteria? And as Anna said, the criteria is evolving, and so we'll continue to look into that.
Right, thank you. And my suggestion was not that I know we could push it and consider everything perfect, but if we are going to have this second party certification involved, I think we should at least propose it to them and see what they say. And if they're for it, then I think we should expand in any way we can.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
We're actually meeting with them later this afternoon.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Then, Deb, I'm handing it over to you for a summary of the documents.
All right. I'm Deb Spalding, Assistant Finance Officer. And so taking you through the gigantic packet that you received, there are 5 documents in here, and you're getting them in advance of them going to the board on February 1st. And so the first one is the resolution that authorizes the issuance. And so that's laying out the maximum amount that we're going to borrow, how much we expect to save from refunding. And then you're also approving the other documents in what we call substantially final format. So some things may be tweaked as we move forward but these are substantially the way they'll be when they're presented for the actual bond issuance. The next document in there is the framework for green bonds. And so in that framework, we lay out, Director Waspy, the types of projects that we will consider to be green. So yeah, it's, as Anna said, it's land acquisition, trails, sea level rise projects, and then habitat restoration is how we've framed it out. You'll also see the preliminary official statement in there. And so that's the document that goes out to the prospective investors, and it gives them information so that they can feel confident that the district's a really good credit risk. And also, they know what they're investing in and what they're buying. And that does not have the final pricing and terms that gets put in later. There's also a fiscal agent agreement. So that's the agreement between us and the custodian, the trustee that's going to hold the funds. It talks about record keeping and how the bondholders know that they're going to get paid. And then lastly, the briefest document is the official notice of sale, which informs the underwriters about how they're going to submit their bids. So the next steps in the bond issuance, we're meeting later today with S&P to do some more green bond discussion. And then tomorrow and Friday, we have our official rating agency presentations, and that's going to be with the full bond team, including our general manager. She's been involved in debt issuances in her prior lives, and so she was excited to join in with those meetings. And then on January 28th, we'll get the ratings from S&P and from Moody's, and we fully expect, knock on wood, to get a AAA rating again. February 1st, all those documents and an update on the ratings that we received will be brought to the board of directors. February 15th is the actual bond sale, and then we'll know how everything went, and we'll receive those proceeds on March 1st. Anna, is there anything you want to add to this?
No, you covered it all. That we are well positioned for forming the great ratings, and then offering the bonds to interested investors, and look forward to a successful sale, and also locking in savings for the taxpayers.
So I think that was our last slide. We are looking for a recommendation, and of course, we're happy to take any questions.
All right, Director Wieskamp.
I will not even pretend to say that I have meticulously done everything in the, I am amazed at how much documentation it takes to go through this. Under the eligible green bond guideline, and I'm correct that there is a misspelling or misuse of word on habitat, and it says projects that improve the habits. So I assume that is a spelling error. My one thing to correct in this whole thing.
That is awesome. That does sound like
I can't imagine how many times you go through all of this. It's just incredible.
I'm trying to picture us improving animals. If we did improve their habits, what would we do?
I started to say, what are we going to do to all the critters out there to improve their habits? Sure, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, I'm impressed as ever, and I'm so glad that we're moving forward with green bonds. And I think the more we can advertise it and encourage others to do this, the better. It's a very California thing to do.
Any other questions, comments? Colin, anything? Colin.
Yeah, Deborah, could I get a copy? Just leave for me at a meeting of the POS. Not because I'm a glutton for punishment, but it's I find them always very useful as a general and broad educational tool for what we are. And I've found that with all the health districts that I've worked for over my career. If I really wanted to understand the district and how it works, the POS was often the best way to do that. And I always had to read them anyway, because my firm would be issuers counsel. So we had to sign off on them. So it's actually useful to me to be able to have it and be able to refer to it once in a while. I just wanted to explain why. So
yes. I also find them very useful, Director Coffey. And so once the final is done with all the debt service schedules and the final numbers, we'll make sure you get a copy of that.
Yeah, and something else that's notable to me is this district doesn't need insurance. So this is an issue that we don't incur the cost of insurance. Every single health district that I've been involved with as issuers counsel always had to purchase insurance in order to get the higher rating. So the idea, and I think many municipalities, Anna, have to, because they can't get AAA ratings. And the cost of the insurance is worth it because they get the higher rating and their cost of issuance goes down. So it is a remarkable testament to the financial success of our agency that we can achieve that rating without insurance. So I wanted to mention that.
We also aren't required to have a reserve fund either. Anna, do you want to add anything to that? Why we're different than some other issuers?
Director Coffey summarized it so eloquently. Yes, you are a AAA agency. That's the highest possible rating. It's very rare. And there are a number of factors that play into achieving that rating. Strength in management, all the policy and procedures, fiscal responsibility, the great fiscal health, and all the solid budgets and revenue performance of the district. And the economy as well plays a role. But you're also the largest district in the United States. And so all these factors combined and the excellent management result in the highest possible rating, which ensures that you get the lowest possible borrowing cost.
You left out the reputation of governance, but that's okay.
That's understood.
That's a given.
That's a given.
I said the solid management, yes, of the district. Yep.
Deborah, I was looking through source and use of funds, and there's a reference to 2022 project account. So I'm wondering, ultimately, if an investor wanted to know, aside from cost of issuance, what these funds were going to be spent on, how does one find out?
Yeah, you noticed in some issuance, they list out, we're going to build a building or we're going to buy something. And here we do, we just have reference to the broader initiative because we're not exactly sure what acquisitions we're going to be using these proceeds for or which development projects. So Anna, again, when the investors are asking those questions, I think we just refer them to our initiative. Is that how we do it?
Yes, Measure WW approved projects.
Yep.
All right. And so how do you derive, as you're planning for this issuance, the $60 million figure? I mean, what are you working off a 5-year capital budget, or how does that work?
I'm going to let Deb respond to that. She does a lot of work with, the district staff.
Yeah, so we reached out to the project managers in ASD primarily, and also acquisition. And the tricky part, as Deborah said, with acquisition is they sometimes can't say or they don't know what acquisitions are going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. But they looked back and said, on average, we're spending about $5 million, I think it was $5.3 million per year on acquisition. And then we had ASD go through the list of all the WW projects and think about what stage they're in. Are they in pre-design, design? Are they still just like an inkling in someone's mind? And so then we put together the list of how much would be likely spent in the next 3 to 5 years. And so that's how we arrived at this 60 million.
So it would be generally accurate if I wanted to really delve into where the 60 million comes from. I would look at our capital budget, our capital program projects budget. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I know we have a separate document, so it's basically the list of projects that was approved by Measure W when Measure WW was approved by voters back in 2008. There was a list of projects, and that's what we're working from. Some of those have morphed into being like actual projects with a project number. You can see them in our project budget book. Some of them aren't there yet, where they don't have a project number assigned to them yet. Some of them, if you look at the budget, it's only going to be, you know, $100,000 for design, but we know in total it's going to cost 14 million. And so you can't quite see it in our project budget book. Deborah, looks like you wanted to add to that.
I was just going to say at this point, it's an internal document that we go through, more of a planning document than a published document, but we're happy to share that with you, any directors that want to see that. But like Deborah said, if you think of Thorogood Marshall, right now we have a budget of 100,000, but we know if we're going to develop south of Bailey Road, we're going to be appropriating in the next 3 years additional funds towards that park. So things like that.
It would be great. I'd really like to look at that document. You know, it's just an exciting concept to see this money flowing and then what it's going to be used for. That makes my day. So I would enjoy that document. A last question. No, I guess that was my last question. I'm just looking at my notes here. So I just appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
All right. Any further comments? Anna, thank you for the great presentation, and thank you for the great endorsement of our staff and I guess our governance team also for our great bond rating and our ability to do these great things. So we do have an order of business, and that is we have the opportunity to recommend to the full board the authorization of issuance of Measure WW bonds for 2022. It's easy for me to say, pardon me, 2022A for $60 million and refunding the $4 million of Measure WW's Series 2009 bonds. Would anybody like to make that motion? Better than I could do it for sure.
You've already read it. I'll be glad to make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. And we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion from members of the public who I see none? Hearing none, I think we need to do a roll call in this format.
Sounds good. Recording Secretary Connie Swisher taking a roll call vote. Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Coffey.
Aye.
And Chair Waspy.
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for your reports. And we look forward to this. Our next item is the 2022 Investment Policy Review and Update. Deb, is that you?
Oh, yep, that's me again. So normally you would hear a little bit from me, and then we would have PFM, our financial advisors, here to also provide you some information. But this year our updates are very minor, so you're just going to hear from us. But PFM will be back in February to give you the Q4 investment update. So just to walk you through a little bit of context, what does the Finance Committee have to do with investing? So the treasurer is responsible for overseeing the investment policies, and we actually have 3 of them. We have the one that you guys had in your packet for the district's primary investments. And then we also have a separate investment policy for our EVRPD retirement fund, and yet another policy for our pension trust. So the Finance Committee reviews and recommends for approval the investment policy every year. That's part of the board operating guidelines. And then you also receive quarterly investment reports. And as part of those quarterly investment reports, you get an update from the district's investment managers, and that is PFM. What does the investment policy do? So the California Government Code says that it doesn't say that you have to have an investment policy, but it says that the local agency governing body is the trustee, and then you are subject to the prudent investor standard. And so a prudent investor is someone who takes into consideration the general economic conditions and the anticipated needs of the agency, and that a prudent person acting in a like capacity and familiarity with those matters would use to safeguard the principal and maintain the liquidity needs of the agency. So we have that safeguard underlined it and liquidity underlined, because those are the two primary objectives of our investment policy, safety and liquidity. And you can see that in section 5 of the investment policy. And there are two additional objectives. Yield, so earning a little bit of revenue, is also something we try to achieve. And then we added one additional objective a couple of years ago, sustainability. And we'll talk about that in another slide or so. So each year, so we have this investment policy to help us do our investing in a very careful way, so that we're keeping everything safe and maintaining the needed liquidity. And we review that investment policy every year, and we update it when needed. So this year's investment policy change is very minor. It's basically a correction from last year. So last year, the governor passed SB 998, which increased and adjusted some of the allowable investments for local governments. And we intended to set a 5% limit for each issuer of commercial paper, which is a type of investment. Type of investments that the district actually doesn't use very much, but we intended to set that limit at 5% as per section 9.13. We needed to remove a line in section 9.3, but it stayed in there. So this year we're crossing it off. Trying to think of the best way to show you that in your giant packet that is on page 239. You can see that line crossed off. It says, moreover, the district shall not purchase more than 10% of the outstanding commercial paper of any single issuer. So that's crossed out, and now the section 9.13 is clearly identifying our limit for commercial paper. And that's the only change. The other reminder we wanted to tell you about, for those of you who haven't been on the investment policy, on the finance committee for a while, is that we implemented a change in our investment policy to integrate environmental social governance. And so that's a new type of screening that we're doing each quarter. When PFM brings you the quarterly report, you'll see some new pages added that tell us our ESG score. And the idea is what gets measured gets managed. So we hope that all the different firms we're investing in will start to say, hey, everybody's now measuring our environmental and social governance work. We better work on this. This is important to the people who are investing in us, so we need to get on the bandwagon too. So we believe that it will protect the Park District's investments, because firms that are strong in ESG tend to actually be slightly better investments. And then again, encouraging those companies to make changes to improve their ESG scores. Oops. And so that was my last slide. I'm happy to take any questions, and then we'll need a recommendation from you.
Any questions or comments from board members?
No.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Great report. So then any members of the public? Seeing no members of the public, then we do have the opportunity to recommend this to the full board. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll be glad to move it.
Second.
By Member Wieskamp, and I'm hoping a second by Director Coffey.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Recording Secretary Connie Swisher taking roll call vote. Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Coffey.
Aye.
And Chair Waspy.
Aye.
Great,
Motion
thank you.
passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for your report. Our next item is the 2022 Board Finance Committee Work Plan and 2021 Board Finance Committee Accomplishments. Deb, you're back on, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, and I think Deborah will maybe jump in a couple times along here. So each year we bring you our work plan for the year, just so you can get a sense of what's coming, and then we also recap what was done in the prior year. So some highlights from last year: we had only 9 meetings, but we did manage to get all of our quarterly reporting done, and you'll see those again this year. It's the job order contracting reports, our quarterly investment reports, and our quarterly financial statements. We did have a couple special projects last year. We did an RFP, and we transitioned the East Bay Regional Park District retirement plan from Transamerica to PARS. And so that all happened at the very end of 2021, and 2022, the retirees are starting to get their checks from PARS. And then we did some work to initiate the WW bond issuance. And our work plan for this year has a lot of the standard items, and then some of the special projects are listed here. Issuing the WW bonds, which you guys just did. We expect to be bringing forward a new community facilities district for the McGee Preserve. It's been a long time coming, but we expect it to happen this year. We expect to be providing you an update to the environmentally preferred purchasing policy, and then also working on our long-term capital funding plan. And that was our last slide. Deborah, you want to add anything?
I'll just say last year we did start our work. I know we've been working on the environmentally sustainable purchasing policy, and just with all of the COVID things that are going on, we've just been taking our time to make sure we do it right. So we'll be bringing that forward to you. Again, with the community facilities districts, they're sometimes out of our control. So we work very closely with the planning staff to be prepared, but they're kind of driven by the development projects that are going on. Remember, this is when land is donated to the district by some kind of development requirement. And when we get land donated to us, we say, hey, we need some funding to maintain these properties. And so we've done a couple of those in the Danville, San Ramon area, and we have projected some other developments that might come forward with that same practice. So the timing of that's a little uncertain, but yeah, typically we just bring you a lot of different annual reports and reviews. We talk a lot about our pension programs as well throughout the year. So you'll get lots of good information on that.
Great, thank you. Any comments, questions on the plan? Colin, Director Coffey.
Thank you. I see in September, introduce long-term capital funding plan for district-wide projects. Is that related to what I was asking about earlier, and how we get to the amount of money we're going to need out of a bond issue?
It is. We're working internally on developing, as the general manager mentioned in a board meeting the other day, on putting together a little bit of a more robust capital improvement program. And so working internally to put together some of those prioritizing some projects, and putting a 5-year plan together. This past year, we worked with the general manager on doing a 5-year forecast for our general funds, but we haven't had the opportunity to work through the capital funding. So that's our goal.
So is this September item new to the committee's work?
It is, yes.
Okay.
I think we've internally done this work in the past to prepare for the budget process. And so we figured we would bring this forward to the Finance Committee as we're putting the 2023 budget together like we do. Sometimes we bring, the things that are related to initiatives. We'll bring forward the Measure WW work plan, or last year we were able to bring forward the major maintenance 553 work plan, and just let the Finance Committee get that information a little bit prior to when the budget is put together. And so we're thinking the same thing with an overall long-term financing plan.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to
so
that.
it's new. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you very much for the report. And as everyone says, it sounds very robust. And we got a lot going for next year, but I look forward to it. I also, and as a question, if the environmentally preferred purchasing policy is coming for us within a month, is there any way of getting it early so we can look at it?
Sure. Yeah, we were going to talk a little bit about the February meeting later. We might be requesting to reschedule that to a better date. But yes, we have a draft of that policy that we've been working on internally. We can get that to you, to all the committee members. And we did try to limit it, so it's like 4 items on average per month. But historically, we have had the opportunity to maybe cancel one meeting and kind of move those items around. So you might see that as well.
All right. Well, thanks again. Our next item is the Regional Parks Foundation 2021 donations and commitments. Juliana, welcome.
Yes, we're going to have Michelle kick us off with Juliana.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Director Rossby. Good afternoon, Michelle Strawson O'Hara, Assistant Finance Officer. I'll present a brief introduction to the Regional Park Foundation annual report before handing it over to Juliana Schirmer for her presentation. I'd like to start off with a reminder of the Park District Procedure 5.4A, which was approved by the board in May of 2018. The intent of this procedure is to increase transparency through improved documentation and to streamline the utilization of donated funds. This procedure allows for funding requests up to $50,000 to be authorized by the CFO and or budget manager for budget adjustments to be made throughout the year. Funding requests over $50,000 continue to be presented to the Park District Board for acceptance through separate resolution. Furthermore, the procedure requires an annual report on all donations to be presented to the board, along with continued authorization of the CFO budget manager to authorize budget adjustments under $50,000 throughout the year. This annual report details the Regional Park Foundation's commitments by 3 categories: total commitments, which are included in the original 2021 Park District budget, total approved through separate action or resolution, and lastly, total commitments paid for Park District projects. So that concludes my introduction. So I will hand it over to Juliana.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. This is my first, I think, virtual Finance Committee meeting, but it's a pleasure to be here every year. And I'm really thankful. I wanted to start out by saying for the relationship that we have with the Park District Finance team and staff helping us prepare this report and put these new procedures together so that we can really share the great work that the Regional Parks Foundation is doing on behalf of the district. So in addition to what Michelle shared with you, what I just wanted to state is what we're about to go over today is the amount that the Regional Parks Foundation has given or directly to the Park District, either through a separate resolution and or through direct payments to specific vendors. What we're going to present to all of you at the executive committee meeting in February is what we raised in 2021. So this is what we gave, and then we'll have a separate presentation with what we raised because the two things don't always correlate. So just wanted to start with that. So now I'm going to share my screen. I believe this is 259 of your packet. That's what I'm going to be looking at here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so going to page 260, you'll see in the top section here, the adopted budget for the Regional Parks Foundation was to pass along $986,325. We then approved through separate resolution $182,300, and then total paid for park projects $313,816. for a total of $1.482 million on behalf of the Park District. So I'll go through these a little bit. I'm happy to take questions if you have any on the specific programs that we funded. As you'll see, these are in dollar amount reverse order here. So we have the Kids Healthy Outdoors Challenge at $91,000. We are in our 3rd year of funding the half of a position, the naturalist working in the mobile education unit. That was a commitment that we made that we would fund it for 3 years in hopes that the district would then absorb it in full. And I think that that's gone very well, helping us to expand resources for additional programming. We fund the multicultural wellness walks. That's the ones that Mona does, working with the various community leaders. We have Adventure Crew, funding that at $25,000, helping to fund the study. And we're also hoping to be able to see that grow to additional cities throughout the next year or two. I'll kind of jump ahead here. Some of these are normal campership programs, working with Teen Eco Action Week, Community Outreach Outdoor Program, Shine, Stay Healthy in Nature Every Day. That has moved partially virtual, partially in person, but that is continuing to go well. And then we've just kind of continued to fund a lot of diverse programs. So programs for veterans, programs for seniors, programs for children living with disabilities and the special fishing derbies, family camps, our Backpacks to Libraries program, where we put together toolkits where people can check out for a week a parks pass and a variety of program ideas that they can do together as a family in our park system. The Share Our Trail Safety program, scholarships, etc. As we go down into page 261, at the top of this grid here, you'll see the programmatic funding is just over $383,000. And then our annual grant to the district was $602,000. And this covers the expenses. Basically, it's whatever the district wants to use it for, but it's general operating. It covers staff and the resources that the district provides on our behalf. Going into section 2, again, per our agreement, any funding that is over $50,000, we need to have a separate board resolution. So these are the two that came forward that you would have seen in 2021. The first one is $100,000 for the Oak Woodland Restoration Project. And the second is $82,000 from PG&E for fuels reduction and fuel management projects. In addition to those, now we'll go into section 3, and these are the projects that we funded directly or through not a separate resolution that would have gotten passed along to the district staff in their project accounts. So this included $40,000 for emergency extraction equipment for the fire department. We helped fund the COVID PSA ad campaigns that we did in partnership with several other park agencies. Again, Trails Challenge, we had some direct expenses there. A botanic garden upgrade project working on a retaining wall. Various parks events, our campership program, things for the Tilden Botanic Garden. We did a display for the Bay Area Shoreline and Waterway. I'll just kind of scroll down. You see we helped fund the Peace Pole. We did a project with MLK Freedom Center with coaching and some sponsorships there. We continued to fund youth employment through the youth job fairs. So that was $5,000. And we helped purchase a horse. We got Zephyr for the district. So our funders really love the animals. They love being able to help with that. And then some of these, as we go down, were just some various park things that they requested. So as you may know, we have funds set aside that we take on an annual basis, that people who go to the parks and they want to make a donation, those come to us, and then we hold them in those fund accounts until a project manager or park manager reaches out and asks to utilize them for something. So some of these lower level projects came through that type of a request. And so total funds for parks totaled $313,816 this year. That is our report. I think the only other thing I wanted to share today is, 2021 was year 2 of dealing with COVID. It was very challenging for both the Regional Parks Foundation and for Park District program staff. I think everybody did a fabulous job trying to, project what programming was going to look like, what the COVID restrictions or requirements would be. So some of these things that we funded, it was based on that hybrid approach of some being in person and some being remote. We did anticipate the need for more busing, that less children would be allowed on each bus and we would have to have more. What ended up happening was most of the schools were not able to participate, or we had to get creative and do things in a different way. so our numbers were down as far as people served, and I think you'll see that a little bit in our next report in the executive committee. But I still think overall, our donations were up. People are continuing to support the foundation and the park district, and we're doing great work. So thank you for your continued support. With that, I'll see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Juliana. Any questions or comments from board members?
In tough times, they just keep on going and people keep on giving. And staff keeps on working one way or another. And I'm just really impressed with what's been accomplished, Juliana. Please pass that on. It hasn't been easy times, but Park District staff never quits. So thank them all for us, whatever you see them.
We will, thank you. And I don't want to give anything away for our next report, but it was another record fundraising year for us. Memberships are up, donations are up. So that really just shows you the community loves our parks. They love what we're doing. They love being able to get outside. So I say, the staff that are out there and being the face of the district are helping make our job easier, because they're really, creating that love and that environment where people want to give.
Deborah.
Great. Thank you, Juliana, for coming. I think having this report out is really valuable to show, exactly like she said at the beginning of her presentation, these are the dollars that actually came to the Park District. So it's great to have that transparent report, and it's been great working with the foundation finance manager who helps to put all of this together. We work closely with her. So thank you.
Yes, and if there's no other comments, Juliana, I'd like to say, I'd like to compliment your staff. I just experienced a friend of mine whose husband passed away, and her husband was a docent at Sunol for a number of years. And she was savvy enough to know she didn't want to just give a bunch of money to the Park District. She wanted to donate specifically to the Sunol interpretive programs. And I found out through the help of your great staff that, boy, you can do all that. You can pinpoint things, and you can really focus on what you like about the Park District to donate. And I think that's a real benefit to people. I mean, I think people would be more willing to give if they knew they could designate. I didn't know that. So I was wondering, so thank your staff and thank you for that. Is there a list of, I know there are Park Foundation accounts, I'm told. Is there a way I can get a list of those accounts? Because, sometimes people ask me, hey, I'd like to donate money to the district. And I say, well, you're welcome to go through the foundation, but if there were specific things that they, talk about, I think that would be, it would work in our favor to get more donations. Is that possible?
Absolutely. We run that list every month, and we have it by fund code or chronological by park. So we're happy to provide that to you, I think probably through this committee. I'm looking at Deborah, but we're happy to do that. And then basically our threshold is anything over about $2,500, we will consider creating another fund account for someone. So if we don't already have one, we're happy to work with them. So a lot of times we'll be able to put it in the Sunol account and then just designate it for a specific project there. But let's say it's something bigger that would take more time, or they wanted time to fundraise, we can create another account and hold it for them as well.
Fantastic. And how long do the accounts last?
These are in perpetuity. So if they're donor designated,
Nothing's
we need to hold them for the intended purpose until they are passed along to the district, or we would need to go back to the donors and say, for whatever reason, that project couldn't happen. Would you like us to return the funds to you, or would you be open to having them, for a different project? So that's our responsibility.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you. If there are no further questions, Colin.
I just want to tell Juliana, I'm looking forward to attending your board meetings.
Yes, Director Coffey. Yes, thank you. We're thrilled to have you. Our first one will be next week, so we'll get to see you there.
That'll be great.
We're sad they're not in person right now, but hopefully soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for all your good work.
Thank you.
And I
thank
think
you.
we have an action on this because we like to bring it to the board as well. So if you wouldn't mind just taking an action to forward this to the full board of directors.
Please, would anyone like to make a motion to recommend to the full board?
Come on, Colin, your
All
turn.
right, my turn. I'm an alternate, so I defer to the.
Oh, I moved you up.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Coffey
And I will be glad to second.
and a second by Member Wieskamp. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Definitely. Recording Secretary Connie Swisher taking roll call vote. Director Waspy,
Aye.
Chair Waspy, I'm sorry. Director Coffey
Aye.
and Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Our next item is public comments. I see no one on our screen, but has anybody written any comments or sent in any ways that were?
No, I've received nothing to as of right now, so no comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments from committee members?
Lots going on in finance.
Always appreciative of all the work that goes into this.
Absolutely.
To these meetings and to our packet. And it really is appreciated and helps us understand what's going on.
Yes, thank you very much. It's well appreciated. And Colin, thank you so much for showing up in place of Elizabeth today. And Deborah, you had something?
Yes. Yeah, Director Eccles had a previous park tour planned, so she wasn't able to make it since our schedule just got put together. And so speaking of the schedule, we do try to have our meetings on the fourth Wednesday of the month is our schedule for this year. And after the schedule was published, we noticed that our February meeting is during our annual Finance Officers Conference. So we can do this offline, but we were hoping to change that date to, Deb, was it Tuesday, February 22nd?
Yep, that's right.
If maybe I'll have Connie follow up with you and see if that's a
Washington's
date.
birthday. Wow.
Is that the official birthday, even though we have a different day
I
off?
think that's the real birthday.
real
Why
birthday.
can't we celebrate finance?
Yeah, so so if it's okay, we'll follow up with a request to make that
Same time?
change. 12:30, yes.
Okay.
So we'll follow up with Director Eccles as well.
Okay.
Excellent. Sounds great.
Okay, and that's all we had today. Thank you again. And yes, Director Coffey mentioned all the work that goes into this packet, so I thank staff. I think by the time we get to the actual meeting, we feel like we've, done a lot of studying and work to put it all together. So it feels pretty good to present. Thank you.
I'm sure you're glad to be done with this one. That was a weighty document.
Truly. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, seeing nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.